Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of our podcast. Today we have with us Satya. He is a very experienced guy who have transformed from his traditional career to creative career, where he creates visuals, sketch notes, mind maps, and infographics. I met him during an online book launch, and from there he has been a great friend and guide to me. We have learned a lot from him, and I think you will too. In this part of the episode, we will learn about how he got into a creative career, how one can get started in creating visuals and leveraging Twitter, and many more. As in this podcast series, we try to bring people who have done amazing work, being outside of their traditional way, and we'll understand how they think, how their mental process, and how they sustain this career outside being this traditional. So, welcome, Satya.
Thank you, Devi, for having me here.
We would love to know your story as you are being for 15 years in your traditional career and now you have suddenly changed to be in the creative career. So how this transformation?
Thank you. So it's all because of Twitter in some ways. So I've worked in a bunch of non-profit organization, then later in education companies and edtech startups, and even ran my own consultancy agency. I've been doing that for the past 4 years. And so as you rightly said, there's this creative thirst is always there, and I just wanted to see whether uh, I can actually pursue it. But one of the biggest hurdle was, as you would know, that is it a feasible career choice? So that has always been back of my mind, especially with having a family, etc. And that's when just not more than a year before Twitter happened, and I saw so many creative people who are actually leveraging Twitter, sharing their content, learning online, building in public, and even making money. That sort of became an inspiration. And I say that why don't I give it a shot? So that is what happened. And unfortunately, the pandemic sort of reduced my businesses, the inbound businesses that I was doing in my traditional consultancy agency. So I didn't have anything else to lose but just to give it a shot. And it's been amazing in some ways. And in fact, 40 to 50% of my income actually now comes via leads on Twitter, which was I wasn't even expecting that. And, it's been quite interesting.
So like we have seen you major like in creating visuals and sketch notes and mind maps and everything. So how did your like visual journey begins?
Yeah. So it's a long story short. I've tried many things before I ended up with the visual um, designing visuals. So I tried coding, I tried no coding, I tried database creation. So quite a variety of different areas because Twitter is with so much different types of specific niches. Right? Like there is this coding Twitter, there is this tech Twitter, marketing Twitter, a lot of things. And I come from a technical writing background. I even tried whether I could actually flex my writing skill. Some point or the other, I discovered a very interesting account called Visualize Value. It's run by Jack Butcher. I think he's an inspiration for so many people. And I really like the way that he interprets a message, a quote, or even a concept into a visual representation. So it sort of, I don't know what sparked a thing in my head, and it sort of gave me this like, can I try this out also? And I saw like bunch of podcasts uh, by Jack Butcher, and he was telling about how he actually started making visuals through just using Keynote or PowerPoint or a very simple software. Then I started giving it a hand and made those visuals. And the actual break sort of came up when I joined a community called Daily Visual Community, which is run by one of my friend and mentor, Craig Burgess. He was the one who gave me the science behind doing these visuals. So he's been studying Jack Butcher so long, and he's been teaching how others, anyone, even without any designing background, can actually visualize content. And the idea is basically making a very complex concept into a simplistic idea, and not very demeaning it, but actually makes the audience think through it, and it sort of hits the person on their head. So this is what it means. It enhances the understanding. It increases or amplifies your comprehension of that idea, and it really, really, what to say, like sparked an interest in me. I started making visuals in PowerPoint. If you don't believe it, so I started making it in PowerPoint. Then slowly graduated to Canva, tried out with Figma, and now I exclusively use a simple tool called Canva, where I use simple elements, take a bunch of concepts and do it. And that's how actually I grew my Twitter account in the past, say, 6 months, I would say. So I joined the Daily Visual community at the end of November 2020. I was like 150, 200 followers, I believe. So I was nobody on Twitter, and I wasn't even making a single paise or a single dollar, as Jack Butcher would say. Now, 6 months later, I have close to 4,000 followers, quite a lot of friends, and I'm learning so many things. And that learning is also getting validated by the money I'm making as a process. So I'm selling my own e-products, e-books. I'm selling my own designing services. Recently, even I started teaching and consulting. So if somebody wants to learn how to use Canva, so I'm also doing that. So it's been quite a journey so far.
Like the visual part, as you say, as you mentioned about like shortening that thing in a particular way that make like understand it very easily. So that was the thing like which brought me also to, like to understand like what amazing thing is this visual. Yesterday you just quoted a quote about the happiness one, the growth in that. So the just a smile and there's the growth arrow which define like whole code in a very depth manner.
Correct, correct, correct. I mean, I don't know. So there is a. I spoke to a couple of. There is, I mean, in fact, the visual Twitter community, as it is called, just like you have tech Twitter, coding Twitter, dev Twitter,
Right.
you have this visual Twitter community.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe a year before, it was a very small community, but now it has grown like anything. So a lot of people are trying their hands in their own interpretation. Like you said, what excites them is this visual representation of that idea.
Right.
So to get a little bit academic, so there is an idea called dual coding theory. It's said by a professor called Pavio. He says that our brain actually has these two compartments, literally two compartments called verbal for processing verbal and visual. So the best content actually has both these elements. It's not just verbal or visual. So some people say that this is higher, this is higher. I don't believe in that. I don't think so. It's actually a combination of those two forms of communication, both the visual and the verbal. And like you said, the visual alone, standing alone, might be out of context. But when
Right.
it combines with a particular quote, like you said about this quote by, I think it was by Pearl Buck, I believe. So growth is germ for happiness. It's a brilliant growth, right? With growth comes happiness, and you use the same element, and it sort of hits you.
Right.
And oh, really, like I could have simply put the quote. It would have been useful also, but once you add with that visual, it sort of increases that impact of that visual. And for me, another beauty is also it's a ideal form for social media growth, because on social media, on a timeline, Twitter or whatever timeline, Instagram, so people are there not to read, people are there to be entertained, and people are actually skimming through content.
Mm.
People are not actually going to sit and so that is why we need to make the content as bite sized as possible, and visuals do that magnificently. So visual is this one element. You have to click it and it will load, then suddenly it hits you, and it also gives you a little bit more real estate, because one tweet is just hardly like a single line, and with that image it increases the real estate and their visibility. And enough proof is there. Like Jack Puja still does his visuals, and I'm still doing my visuals. I'm not doing it yet daily. I think I'll get on that track soon, but a lot of people are doing it, and in fact it has come to a point where people are seeking such visualizers
Yeah.
uh, to create content for either as part of their social media strategy or part of their blog graphics, or even for book. I mean, like recently the infamous book,
Yeah.
Almanac of Naval. So Eric actually made it. So Eric basically he took all the Twitter content of tweets by Nawal, and Jack Butcher actually rendered visuals for it. So it's part of a book now. If you buy the book contains the content, Nawal's content, which is curated by Eric, and Jack Butcher's this one. So now this is getting famous. Like book graphics has become its own industry. It's still tiny, but I think it'll grow. So you see simple infographics. Even James Clear is someone who does interesting graphics in his own book, Atomic Habits. So it increases visibility, understanding. So it's good.
That you mentioned about that the two compartment, like seeing brain as in two compartments, that one is in verbal way and that one in a visual way. That's the real important thing. Like when I see a long piece of content, and now when I see just same piece of content, just written same thing, but when a small visual added, that small portion create a lot impact in understanding that whole form of a content.
Yeah. I definitely agree. So, like hearing you speak about this, I believe you have that strong inclination towards visual content. I mean, it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. Some people still prefer text-based content. Some people still skip out the graphics. The reason is that, like, the kind of graphics that we see is very representative graphics. So, for example, if you see a graphic, Apple will have an image of an apple. A car will have an image of a car, or a deer will have an image of a deer, or something like that. So it's simple graphical representation. So the actual graphic is not adding any value to the content, which is unfortunately how the current graphics in many of the media is actually used, which is sort of is more of a noise rather than a value addition.
Yeah.
But that's when people like Jack Butcher or other people like Carl Richards. Carl Richards is another fantastic guy. So he actually is a New York Times editor, and he makes wonderful. In fact, Jack Butcher quotes him as his inspiration, and so there is this multiple set of people who uses graphics to enhance the content. It depends on the designer, I believe. So more than the this one. So how you want to use it. It's a thin line, but if you use it properly, nothing like it.
Yeah, that's so. Like, how can one like get started with like creating small visuals?
Great. So I think till now we spoke about the consumption part of visual. So
Yeah.
the creation part of the visual is quite an interesting journey. I myself not a professionally trained graphic designer. As I said, I come from technical writing background and education background, um, and I haven't taken any training or per se or anything like that. But it's sort of a mindset, I believe. And the second is that it's about doing it consistently, trying it out repeatedly, again, and not to aim for that perfection. So as
Yeah.
with anybody who are starting with any skill, not with visual. So one of the mindset that we have is that we have this taste for people like Jack Butcher, and we want to make something like Jack Butcher. Unfortunately, on day one, day two, you're not going to make it. And I don't think I can even near him despite the 6 months. 6 months is not even enough. Jack Butcher has been doing it for more than a decade or more, and so that's a different thing. So instead of aiming for that perfection, so we just have to try it out and repeat it. That's where the Twitter comes in actually. So what Twitter does is that it gives you this immediate feedback through your likes, RTs, comments from your followers, and the more comments and likes you see, and you get consciously
To create more.
yeah, consciously ask for feedback and create. So my immediate thing is to get started. So that's the first thing. Don't aim for perfection. Get started. However stupid it might be, I still make stupid visuals. Not that like almost 60-70% of my visuals are still stupid. That's how I would say that those premium this one gets hit and gets viral in some things. The second thing is that once you get started, people get also they do it for 10 days, and on the 11th day they expect as if like they should get 1,000 followers or something like that. It's not going to happen. Okay, you should do it on the 11th day, you should do it on the 12th day, you should do it on the 20th day, you should do it on the 50th day, 100th day, and you should keep on doing it despite the feedback. So the second element is consistency. Okay, The second element is consistency, and a fair bit of warning here, because in name of consistency, many people simply repeat the same mistakes. Okay, you should be very very sharp to actually get feedback, either through likes. So likes is a very very rudimentary feedback, but you can even send DM people, email people, ask your friends, and ask for like very very concrete feedback, constructive criticism from them, so that you can say, Satya, I like this, Satya, I don't like this. I do still do that very very extensively, and ask for feedback. That conversation should happen. So that's
Yeah.
a difference between practice and deliberate practice. That's a difference between repetition and consistency. So you should not mindlessly repeat the same mistake. You should improve upon your skill. So like 1% every day. So that's the idea. So these two things, starting, and sometimes I would say starting is actually easier. You can start today. Very, very easily you can start. The problem actually comes on the 10th day, and you publish that 10th visual or 10th sketch note, 10th tweet or 10th blog or 10th product, and nobody cares about it, and still you go on to the 11th day and you make it. Still do it. So there is this one interesting thing, quote by I think Thomas Edison, I believe. So he says that um, people who fail don't believe that how much close they were to success. Okay, they were so close to success, but they just gave up at the last moment. Right?
Right.
But you just have to uh, take a little more extent, and I would say actually we have the easier game here. So we are not doing any cold calling, we are not meeting people in person. It's random Twitter posting, which is actually the easiest way of marketing. A decade before, we didn't have this luxury. So when I was starting, I didn't have this luxury. Otherwise, I would have started very, very earlier. But this is such an opportunity. We just have to capitalize it.
That's the huge benefit of like building in public and using like Twitter, leveraging Twitter as a platform to like grow and learning more on it. Also when we are creating
Correct,
the,
correct.
I get like before when we just start creating, there is another thing that we need to understand that content, piece of content in depth. Like rather than just, if I take just when we talk about that, about the visual part, that if I don't understand clearly, I would just keep apple as an apple, car as a car, but that's not a visual, no. That don't give, that irritate people to just skip that visual. But the thing, when the thin line, that when you understand it proper clearly, we understand okay what it is, then we create a shot. So I guess that's the one point before when we get just started out, that only point we misses is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, beautifully said, actually. I think you captured it very nicely. I think, I don't know, like, so this process of coming up with a visual. So it's, I don't know, I'm unfortunately unable to articulate it. Maybe Craig Burgess or Jack Butcher would be able to do it. But I think it's, in some ways, you munch over that idea, munch over that particular concept. As you rightly said, you have to understand it as deeply as possible, uh, as much as the author intended to be, the writer of that particular quote or the content, whoever it might be, and try to get the meaning behind it. And then you have to come back and see how this could be represented as visually appealing as possible. I think that process is sort of, again, I don't have like a solid strategy or anything like that, but you just keep on trying. But as you rightly said, the first thing is to try to understand it.
Understand.
At least try to get to the depth of that content. Like if it is a sketch note, the blog content. If it is a visual, that particular message or that two-line quote or tweet post. For me, one interesting thing that actually happened is that it's also a very very learning process. Agreed that I'm creating it for somebody else, but it's an opportunity for me to understand that
Understand.
particular quote, to understand that particular blog post or a book summary, which I usually do a sketch note of, because it's an opportunity. So it's as selfish a journey, a process, as I'm doing it for others. And what I found is that it's not like I have to understand and I make the visuals. For me, it is like a parallel process. I make something, I understand it more, make then reiterate it, then understand it another more. Usually, I sketch it on a notebook, preferably. Then I go to the platform, the software platform, Canva to actually do that. So that also helps me. Sketchnoting, I do it like 2-3 iteration. Then I go to actually my sketchnote notebook where I actually do it with proper marker, highlighters, and coloring. So you do this 2-3 times iteration. So you in the process of that iteration itself is like you understand the concept as deeply as possible. And people seem to like that. That's what is amazing about it.
Yeah, so to like summarizing the thing, the process, how to start. First thing is like we need to main thing is to understand that concept, how deeply as possible you understand it. Second is to just get started with it, and third is to do consistency and to get a feedback loop clearly and improve and daily. That's all. Like it is great thing to understand. Okay, so like when like you mentioned about like Twitter and that feedback, like I got from the Twitter that the feedback loop that was not possible before the Twitter has really increased the time of that getting that feedback loop.
Completely agreed. Completely agreed. I think so. I was talking to another friend of mine. He's from UK. I think a couple of days before we had a conversation. So he's been on Twitter, producing, creating. So we might be even doing a collaborative project soon. And what he was saying is that just a couple of years before, Twitter was different. So Twitter wasn't as creatively conducive as it is now. So he says that something happened over the past 1.5 years. Previously, it was people just posting random stuff. So there are like bunch of community tribes, etc. And what he was saying is that now it seems that there is more creative force on Twitter. It seems to be very conducive for creative people. I don't know how Twitter was earlier, so he was sharing that, and he was also pointing out very interestingly that there is this pockets of community that has very organically grew up in Twitter. So that is what now we are doing it, right? Like money Twitter, visual Twitter, dev Twitter, coding Twitter, tech Twitter, so writing Twitter, marketing Twitter, whatnot. Like there are people who have built communities using Twitter, leveraging Twitter, and so it seems to be like a very interesting platform. And I don't know, it's. I hope it will continue
Yeah.
in that manner. I really hope so. But as long as it is there, I believe we should start doing it. But a fair bit of warning. I think we are also seeing some backlashes that is happening. For example, Jack Butcher was running 3-4 Twitter accounts simultaneously, I believe, and Twitter actually killed a couple of his accounts. So, and he actually had to fight for Visualize Values account back. And so, what he has been doing for the past 2 months is that he has been creating an email list, even a paid email list that he has been growing. So, I mean, almost everybody now is recommending, and I'm a big fan of newsletters as well, email newsletters. So you have your Twitter for ephemeral content. So unfortunately, uh, uh, Twitter sort of encourages ephemeral viral content, which may not be useful, but which may be
Mm.
catchy, attention seeking, unfortunately. And your Twitter gets also lost. Your content gets lost in the timeline. What I posted 2 months before, I have to search for it. It's not going to show for the audience unless they take the effort to search for it. So there is no organic way of like floating the content up. So the second best way is to actually have an audience on email newsletter as well, and you own this email list. So you nobody can take it away from you unless the subscriber unsubscribe it. So I again that is also been a journey. So again, the beginning of the year I had hardly 200, even less than that, mostly friends on my newsletter. Now I have close to 800,
Wow.
800 subscribers. Again, this all came up on Twitter. It's comparatively low from the Twitter following. I can understand that. That's how it is going to happen because the more serious, loyal audience would come on your email list. So do this immediate market lead on Twitter, but also grow your
Right.
email account parallelly. So this is going to help you in the long run. Yeah,
The one thing I learned was that like this is like a type of funnel. We use leverage Twitter as a main audience, collect them to grow your private. private things like newsletters and email list and all that.
Correct. I mean, so that is how Jack Butcher is also doing, right? Jack Butcher is not selling his visuals. Jack Butcher is actually selling a course on how to create online income. So his visuals are basically, like you said, lead magnets. So they attract followers, they attract customers, and he perpetuated that cycle. And what is happening is that now he's teaching how to make online courses, how to create your own online business, permissionless apprenticeship. So that's a term that he coined. How you can actually get more visibility. How do you get is that in the trick most of us like visualizers we also do is that like many people do that visualizers what we do is that we take a instead of taking a quote said by somebody who's dead we also take a tweet post who is which is said by somebody on Twitter with a relatively big account and we tag them and if they like that quote they RT it which will increase the visibility like that. So Jack Butcher very famously did it with Naval. So Naval Ravikant gave him that visibility, more than enough visibility. In fact, that's history, right? Now we all know about that. So use this design. So sometimes people assume that visuals are only for this design type people or something like that. It could be part of your content strategy. And I still tweet non-design, non-visual content as well. It's not that I only do this. There are people who do that. I also talk about tiny habits. I talk about generally about habit formation. I talk about journaling. I'm a big fan of journaling, free writing. I talk about health. So I talk about what interests me generally. And this is a way of communication. Visualizing is a way of communication. Doing a thread is a way of communication. Doing an online video is a way of communication. So you mix and match them based on your strength, your inclination, your audience's interest, etc.
This bring to me the downside or the like the traps that people are falling with, like as an me, if I am joining this, considering me that I am joining Twitter right now, I will see the people who are like growing like a lot in like short span of time, and they what they use, they post something that like they're learning from something, and some things that are like what do you call it, then static or growth hacks. They use growth hacks to grow, and that made people like me that okay, I am feeling something, I am not able to share that thing, I am not that level, or I'm feeling an imposter syndrome that okay, how can I share, I am not eligible for that sharing that thing, and that's a huge
Actually,
downside.
it's one of the unfortunate unfortunate this one. So in fact, yesterday we had our office hours in our daily visual community, and we had this exact same conversation. And somebody shared a tweet that said that um, this Batman quote, right? So based on the Batman quote, somebody tweeted saying that either you die as a small account or you grow into a large account selling Twitter growth ebook or course. So unfortunately, most of the guys. So if you are selling a Twitter growth hack at the end of the game, so it means that you are demeaning whatever content you put so far. So whatever content you put so far, it was just a hack, not actually content. Right? That's
True.
what it means, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah. So you don't have a specific this one. So then when so one of the part like we were discussing about this, it's such a. I mean, some people unfortunately take that route. I don't know. Like I don't want to make a value judgment out of it, but if you don't like it, you don't have to do that. And there are other ways of doing it also. Like I like how Craig Boogies said this very interesting. He said that I literally don't want to play any engagement game. Okay, like like tweeting, commenting on someone else to get the increase the visibility, etc. etc. People do that. There was even a time when people are having arting groups where you are part of an arting group. Like you can IRT or ARTS. Like
Oh,
Twitter banned it, made it illegal. In fact, sometimes or the other, the algorithm picked it up. They somehow figured that out. So it's I don't know. People are doing sometimes. People are not doing. But what Craig Burgess said is that like he looks at you like I'm growing very slowly. So he confesses that he's going very slowly, very organically. But what he says is that at the end of the 5 years or something like that, I may not have like a million followers, but I'll have maybe 50,000 followers. But those 50,000 followers are there for me,
True.
for Craig. They are not there for something else. They are following me just for me. They know me. They whatever random news I fall into. And Craig is somebody who is very comfortable being himself. His authenticity. He posts what he feels like posting, and he sometimes cooks up a book, cooks up an idea through tweeting and posting. So this is what I'm thinking, and he cooks up. It's really nice. So I also feel very comfortable. Like instead of doing all those sort of growth hacks, right? Rightly you said, you you be comfortable in yourself, and people who genuinely want to make that connection, who see that, they'll come to you. And people automatically who don't, who are playing that engagement game, will not follow you, obviously, because you are not playing that game, and they will know that no use following Satya. And they'll automatically, that's what is happening. People either unfollow me, or people either mute me or something like that. That's what I would say. Like every unfollow is actually taking you closer to your truest followers. Okay, so you should be happy that people are unfollowing, because
Wow.
it's you destroy your audience, destroy your bad audience, and it's taking to your this one. So what happens is that these followers are more than mere number count. They are actually liking your content every time. So people DM me saying that Satya, your content is good. Satya, this one is good. I mean, not everybody. I'm saying, and I'm not saying this for boasting or something like that, because people follow me for the genuine content, not for that like random hack, like one-liner platitudes, or quote from some dead guy or something like that. So they follow me because this is Satya. He is doing some sort of experimentation with it. I seem to like what he is doing. I think I can get something out of his content, so I'm following. That is the equation, and hopefully it's happening already. It's not even a now. They also convert into paying customers. They also buy my ebooks. They also buy my workshops. We collaborate. Multiple collaborations have already happened. It's interesting, right? I'm sitting in India. You do collaboration with people in Ireland, UK, US, Denmark, whatnot. So those kind of wonderful things. So one thing I sort of like recommend is that, like, if it's not the only way, with the engagement route is not the only way, there are also other ways of doing it, so you don't have to be bogged down by it. So even if you have 1,000 followers, 2,000 followers, are they sincere enough? Are you is it a community rather than this followership? That is a, and people mindlessly post, right? Like people say, don't look for followers, build for relationship. Those are the first guys you should not believe. Okay, okay. So if you are genuinely wanting to make relationship, you would not be posting about making relationship. If you are genuinely wanting to build an audience, you will not be posting about building audience or something like that. You will actually reach out to people. You will already be occupied enough to. So that's what I think the other day we were also discussing, right? So there are two sets of people. Right? There are people who are actually, there are people who are talking about creator economy, and there are actually people who are creating in the creator economy. So which part you want to be? Either you want to be this loudmouth 1 million follower or 20,000 follower creator account who talks about creator economy, or you want to actually create stuff. I want to create stuff. I will talk about it, obviously. That is how I sort of increase my visibility. But I want to be identified myself as a creative. I don't even want to use the word entrepreneur. I want to be considered as a creative, and I create stuff. If I don't like something, I want to do myself. One word yesterday, like it's very interesting that so yesterday conversation happened, and I want give, if you can have a minute, I want to say that
Yeah.
um, the advice was that Satya, don't create content that if you don't like. And I was trying, and that's sort of the fight. I still have that fight. Should I lot of game it? Should I make content which the audience like, or something like that? Like that game is always there, right? Like whether so this is getting more like, so let me do that, even though I don't like it, even though I don't feel challenged of doing it. So that sort of tug of war was there, and the point that advice that immediately came was that simple. Satya, if you don't like making something, and if you make it and post it, your audience will be able to see through you. They will see it. They will see
Yeah,
it whether Satya is doing it with love and care, or he's just randomly posting for the likes and
sake of
RTs and
followerships. Yeah.
followership, anything for that matter. People will see through you. Okay, that sort of hit me. I mean, then I can. I mean, sometimes you need this validation, right? Like whatever gyan I'm giving it now, I am also completely full of imposter syndrome, like you said. I'm also still learning, and I confess that I am still learning. And this one, sometimes you need that validation from people like you, from people like who are doing something similar, who have that some similar inclination, and that is when I say that it's not even building an audience. It's actually building a community of like-minded people. You come together, and so that community will validate certain assumptions, will also challenge your certain assumptions, will give you some hope that the way that you're going is actually the right way for you. Okay, so yesterday was like a hit for me. So I believe people have to take that stance and not to take the popular opinion or popular strategies that you see through. Yeah, this is obviously visible, right? Like even like the best I mean, to extend that conversation, the best the people who make more money on YouTube, for example, are not the people with the highest number of subscribers, because people with the highest number of subscribers and the highest level of impressions, they are looking for impressions and views and subscribers. So they are obviously gaming the content. They are not actually making money, because they make money only through ads, because that is the level of money that they can make. The actual genuine this one is from people who have less than 10,000 subscribers, because YouTube is their free content. They actually make money by selling their premium courses, right?
Yes.
They sell, like, I mean, $1,000 course is now it's everyone is selling $1,000 course, and you have premium courses like $5,000 courses, like that's like the amount of money you have to pay for colleges in India, right? And people are paying for it to learn Notion, to learn Rome research, or whatever tool or SaaS product or whatever it might be. So that's how it happens. You produce this quality content for a very very niche audience, and that niche audience will pay you how much ever money you want for how much ever want you want. So it's not the size of the this one, but it's the volume of conversion. It's a rate of conversion, not volume. It's a rate of conversion to customers. So that's what matters more.
So I have one question about like building in public, as in general. Like